Hey YouTube, I just thought I would do a quick review on the Cooper Discovery AT3 tires that I have on my truck. I have a Chevy Silverado 1500. I've had these tires for about 2 years now, so I think I can do a pretty fairly comprehensive review on what I found with them. As far as the, the pros or the things I originally liked about the tire was, first of all, cost. They're fairly reasonable. I think I paid about, I think it was about $200 a tire, and so I thought that was pretty good for, it's a pretty good sized tire. These are 18-inch rims, so it's a pretty good sized tire. Initially, I had watched some videos online and I'd seen that they had performed relatively well. I liked the tread pattern on them at the time. I'll get into that a little bit more in a little bit. But, basically they just had good reviews, and so I thought I would go with it. I thought it was a nice all-around tire. I do a fair amount of commuting, so I needed something that would be good on the road and also would be good in snow. I live in an area that's about 20 miles south of Buffalo, so we get a lot of snow here. And just to give you an indication of how much snow we get, we have 3 ski resorts within about 20 miles of us here, 2 of them within about 5 miles. So this is considered the snow belt below Buffalo, or south of Buffalo. And we also live in a very hilly area. Some of the roads are quite steep, including the one that I live on. So I needed something that worked good in the snow and in the hills. And so I thought these would be a good solution. After having the tires for 2 years, I have to say that they do drive good on pavement, on highway. I don't really have too many complaints as far as that goes. I did have vibration develop in one of the tires last year, and when I've been getting regular rotations on them. I go when I should. Sometimes I push it, sometimes it's an extra 1,000 miles or something, but it's mostly highway miles. But anyways, I had a vibration develop in one of the tires, and I purchased these at Dunn Tire here in Buffalo, and took it back to them for the rotation, asked them about what they could do. There was nothing they could really do to tell what was wrong with the tire. They just put the one they thought was vibrating on the back, and that minimized the vibration that I was feeling in the truck. But unfortunately, it's time for another rotation, and I don't know if that's going to have to be put back on the front or not. But anyways, so let me get into a few of the things that I found that I don't like about these tires that I think you should know. I didn't see these disadvantages in some of the other videos I watched. But anyways, the first thing I don't like is that it's a relatively soft-walled tire. And you can kind of see on these tires here, and it's a fairly heavy truck. It's a 1500, so it's got an 8-cylinder engine. It's a fair amount of weight on the front end here. But these tires, they tend to compress quite significantly down here where it meets the pavement or the road surface or whatever. And I don't know, I guess it doesn't really affect the driving. I keep them at 35 psi, which is the optimum pressure for them. It doesn't really affect the driving. The wear, it hasn't really, it doesn't affect the wear in any way. They wear at a relatively normal rate. I just, personally, aesthetically, I wish that the wall was a little more rigid so that it just held it up off the road a little more, and it tended to look a little more rounded when it was just sitting still. That's just a personal preference, but I don't want my tires always looking like they're a little flat on the front end, which is kind of how these look. I don't know if that's just this type of tire for this type of truck, but I have seen similar trucks with these tires, and they look like they're experiencing the same thing. I've seen similar trucks with lots of other types of tires, and that doesn't seem to happen. And so that's one thing I don't like about them. The other thing I don't like is, unfortunately, their handling in the snow. Generally, it's okay, but like I said, I live in a very hilly area, and I use 4-wheel drive a lot. And when I replaced these 2 years ago, I replaced a set of fairly worn out Bridgestone tires. I don't recall the name of the model of the tire, but They're very popular, and I suspect they might have been the ones that came with the truck. I replaced those Bridgestone tires with these, and I would say that when these were brand new, driving with these tires in four-wheel drive on slippery conditions like slushy snow is worse than the worn-out Bridgestones that I replaced. And I think I know the reason why. I've talked to a couple other people that I know that are a little bit into cars, and they know a few things about tires. And one of the things that they mentioned to me when they looked at these was the size of the blocking in the tread pattern here. You've got large, flat surfaces here, and unfortunately, with large, flat surfaces like that, there's not a lot there to dig into the snow and slush when you're trying to maintain traction. I haven't really experienced a big problem with these in braking and turning, but I don't exactly do that at high speed. My biggest thing was I needed to have something that when I put in four-wheel drive, I needed to pull me up these hills where I live, and these just aren't cutting it. I don't know how they necessarily work in mud. I would suspect it would be the same thing, because the other problem with having big blocking like this is when you don't have bigger spaces between the blocks, it doesn't tend to throw the snow as the tire's turning, and I suspect that mud would be even worse. So the snow and the slush gets packed in these grooves, and then it basically becomes a slick, and then literally I was having all four tires spinning coming up the hill at our house here, and I wasn't having that happen even with the worn out Bridgestone, the semi worn out Bridgestone tires. So the other thing too is you'll notice that the groove pattern in these tires is fairly linear here, up the middle, and so I think that's another thing. And the way they've got this blocking kind of turned so that these are almost like parallelograms here. Instead of being perpendicular to the tire travel direction, they are sort of parallel to it, and I think that also helps cause it to lose traction when you're in slushy and snowy conditions. Another thing that I don't like about these tires, and I really wish that where I bought them, I wish they would have told me about this, was that I was told later that they actually make a light truck version of this tire. Now, these are the passenger version, and from what I'm told, you can tell the passenger version because the tire number, or the tire, you know how you have the numbers on the side here that say P265, 65, R18? Well, the P is passenger, and they make a light truck version that supposedly wears a lot better. I've had these tires for 2 years, and I'm already to the point where they'll pass inspection. I think there's still an eighth of an inch, maybe a little more of tread here, but they're not gonna do any good for me through another winter. In fact, I'm thinking that after 2 years, I'm gonna have to replace these tires with something. And I've had people suggest to me that maybe I should just go with a dedicated snow tire, put these on in the summertime, and that's an option. You might want to consider that if you're getting this type of tire. I was hoping that I could save some cost and spend just the money on an all-season type of tire, because I do a lot of commuting. I commute about 25 miles every day one direction, so about 50 miles a day. And so I was going to be putting a lot of miles on this, and as you know, it's like 90% of the time you're driving on dry pavement, so I didn't want to have something that was too blocky and too knobby, and so a dedicated snow tire might be a good option. But if you're looking for something that's an all-season, I would actually recommend going with something more like the Bridgestone, or maybe looking at some of the other types, because I'm just not impressed with the way these Coopers handle in snow, and I can only assume mud based on that. So I hope that this helps, and if you're thinking about these tires, I don't want to say that they're terrible tires. I know Cooper makes a lot of good tires. I know people who have Cooper tires. These ones just happen to not work out for the application that I needed them for, which was snow and hills where I live. And so if you're on the fence, or if you get something that maybe is just a little more expensive but might be better in the snow, I would totally recommend that you do it. And so I hope this helped, and good luck on your tires, with your tires. Thanks.